Happened to pass your doorway, gave you a buzz, that's all. Lately I thought lots about you, so I thought I'd pay a social call. Do you recall the old days? We used to have a ball. Lately I thought lots about you, so I thought I'd pay a social call. I'd lie and say things I just swear, but to tell the truth, I hadn't been to hell. So if you should try to kiss me, I promise that I wouldn't stall. Maybe we'll get back together, starting with this incidental, elemental, a simple, a social call. tell the truth, I haven't been too well. So if you should try to kiss me, I wouldn't stall at all. Maybe we'll get back together, starting with this incidental, elemental, a simple social call. starting with this incidental, elemental, a simple social call.
All right. Well, this was a snippet of Miss Camille Thurman and Mr. Darrell Green's artistic residency, digital artistic residency made possible by Chamber Music America in collaboration with the Pappy Martin Legacy Jazz Collective and the Love Supreme School of Music. Well, to start, we will have our Chief Executive Officer, um, Ms. Dawn Martin Barry Walker, address the words of welcome and somewhat introduce our guest for this morning. Dawn?
Good morning, everyone, and on behalf of the entire Pappy Martin Legacy Jazz Collective, our board, membership, family, I'd like to say welcome. And it's very good to see you all here supporting us in our efforts to make sure that jazz continues at the highest level. And we are certainly so happy to have Camille Thurman, a jazz vocalist and saxophonist with Wynton Marsalis's Jazz at Lincoln Center, and the wonderful world-renowned drummer Darrell Green here, representing the music of Betty Carter as well as Art Blakey. So Marcus has already mentioned that we're so appreciative to get funding for this event from Chamber Music America and the Doris Duke Foundation. And I'm going to turn it back over to Marcus because he's more technically able to continue this whole event today. But thank you again so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dawn. I will start by saying that it is my utmost pleasure and great honor to have with us this morning these two renowned, world-renowned, I would say, jazz musicians who are also ambassadors of the music, not just here at home, but around the world, wherever they go and play. It is also a pleasure for me to welcome them in the context of this project, which celebrates two great icons of this music we call jazz. And I'm talking about Betty Carter, the illustrious Betty Carter, and this seminal drummer of the music, Mr. Art Blakey. I'd like to welcome Ms. Camille Thurman and Mr. Darrell Green. And I'd like to say good morning. How are you guys doing this morning?
Good morning. Doing great.
It's a pleasure to have you. Well, this morning's event, really, the primary purpose of it is to have an exchange between yourselves and students, which were previously recorded, for you to get a chance to answer their questions and kind of interact with them a little bit, although in a virtual way. But also, we'll try to accommodate some time for the people who are now attending this Zoom session to get a chance to ask questions of their own. But before we do all of that, I'd like to ask you, what was it like for you to work on this project to celebrate the music of people like Betty Carter and Art Blakey? What do those names mean to you? What do their legacy mean to you as musicians? Whichever one of you can start.
Well, celebrating Betty, you just can't do it enough because she's left such a huge legacy in this music, and especially for vocalists and for instrumentalists, she was literally an institution. So to create a set paying homage to her, but playing all of her music was just exciting. You don't get to do it often, and to be able to have a place where you're gonna perform only her music and get to talk about her is just really exciting for me.
Yeah, both of them are like big institutions. Our Blakey was like a school within itself. But not only, his band, but his business, the way he ran his business, keeping the band on the road for so many years. And to be honest, our Blakey is like my gateway into jazz. So, before our Blakey, I wasn't into jazz. And when I heard Art Blakey, that flipped my world upside down. So for me, it was like a return to where it all started for me. So it was great.
Yeah, Betty was like that for me, seeing her videos of performances online and seeing how free she was and how she occupied that space, yes, as a vocalist, but primarily as a musician. That really inspired me to want to take on the journey of, oh, I want to, if I'm going to be a vocalist, I want to do it just like that, being one of the cats.
Good. And so it's interesting to hear you say that because clearly Betty Carter and Art Blakey do not belong to your era of jazz musicians. It's interesting to see how far-reaching their influence is, both across time and space, because there are people. I myself did not grow up in the United States, and very early on, I knew who she was, and I also knew who Art Blakey was. So it's very interesting to see their legacy be so potent in that it you know reaches people far beyond the places where they themselves performed. That being said, how important do you think it is for the continuation of the tradition, of the jazz tradition, for people to know some of these figures of jazz belonging to a different era? Because I think most of you will agree with me that the term jazz has taken on very different connotations, across time and space, especially with the fact
Always.
that so many different
Okay.
jazz musicians had traveled across the world and left their imprint on other different cultures that they themselves have kind of added. We have things like Brazilian jazz and Latin jazz today, things like that, Afro-Cuban jazz and things like that. How important is it for the integrity of jazz music and the continuation of it that people like Art Blakey and Betty Carter be listened to and looked at as some sort of a blueprint for what the music used to be and for what it can continue to be?
It's very important for both of them. They epitomize what it meant to be an artist, but most importantly, to be part of the community. Both of them were pulling musicians that were younger and training them and using their space as a way to strengthen musicians of the next generation. But then at the same time, you see how, like what Darrell said, as business people, they were setting the bar outside of yes, being great musicians and being great composers and being great arrangers and band leaders. They were setting the bar for what it was to be for even musicians of ourselves now today, understanding what it means to have ownership of your music and being able to control your career in a way where you're making the decisions to set up your legacy the way you want it to be seen and to be heard even long after you're gone. Even coming down to how the music is presented, where you present your music. For Betty, at a time she was putting together her own label, putting out her own music. When there were people that were saying no, and she was like, "Well, the heck with you. I'm going to make this happen regardless." And thank God she did that because we got those records now today to see that it's a testament to you can be your own artist, but also you can be in control of your own craft and make sure that your legacy is protected the way you want it to be protected and heard for the next generation to come.
Awesome. Awesome. And Mr. Green, I'm going to frame your question just a little differently because as part of your residency, you highlighted some of the different things that Art Blakey quite literally invented as part of the jazz vocabulary and idiom. He's again a seminal figure of his era in jazz. How important is it for drummers today, people who are now playing this music, to understand, hey, those cool things that you like to do, they have an origin, and it's important to pay homage for that, to that origin, and also understand the context within which some of those different devices were being used.
I think that's extremely important because a lot of our history is not documented, and the only way it can live and live on is for us to have knowledge of that and carry it with us and pass it along and keep it out there. A lot of those things, a lot of people don't know that Art Blakey contributed, but also a lot of the other great musicians and great drummers contributed a lot more than people realize. Um, and to for me, uh, growing up and getting into Art Blakey, I mean, I wanted to be as much like Art Blakey as I could at that time, and it taught me so much more about music than just drumming, but it taught me about storytelling because I remember listening to his records and I would listen, especially like the live concerts. It felt like I was at the concert. It took me on that journey and it was just like, man, I want to do that. Like, how do I tell a story like that, or put together a band and, just be able to have that impact through a record. Like, and I wasn't there. It's like probably like 40 years or 50 years before I was born. I mean, before I got into music to. But that was a big impact on me, like extremely big. And to look at the power, right? People think of jazz today, especially uh like quote unquote traditional or straight ahead jazz. They think about background music, they think about dinner jazz. But one thing I learned from watching those concerts, watching those videos, when he was playing, I saw those drums moving. Drums don't move from tapping on them very lightly. That was power. That mean it felt like something. And so that changed my whole thing too. It's like, wait a minute, because everybody's like, oh no, it's jazz, got to be quiet. And I'm like, wait a minute, we don't listen to hip hop, rap, pop, rock, nothing quiet. But jazz, you want it to be quiet. And I was like, wait a minute, these guys are hitting hard. So it wasn't Art Blakey, just from that beginning step made me look and say, wow, there's a lot more to playing, a lot more to this music that I need to search and experience. And that's one of the first things why I would say it's important to go back and study the elders that came before so you know what's there, so you know what that legacy is, so you can carry it on. How can you carry something on if you don't know what it is?
Right. And so I'm glad that is brought to our attention, especially considering that Ms. Thurman earlier um, used the term, well, talked about mentors, and you used the term, well, referred to mentorship. Mentorship is probably one of the staples of the jazz tradition, right? Behind every jazz great, there's probably another jazz great that took them under their wing and made sure that they knew what they were supposed to do or oriented them in the music. Today, for the, you know, to preserve the tradition, how important, well, first of all, how common do you know it to be for young jazz musicians to have other successful jazz musicians as mentors? And if they don't, how important would it be for them to have one, to understand that in order for you to become something great, just like you just said, Mr. Green, that you have to know about it. You have to know, you have to be in contact somehow with someone, either through listening to their records, but if you can have access to them, I think it could be even more effective knowing that they've been there before and they know better than you what it is to navigate the realm of jazz music. Any of you?
It's very important. This music, it's a craft that is handed down orally and orally, just talking through the experiences of the life and of the music, but then also learning how to listen and understand this language. And it's important that you go to the source because they were there to hear it, they were there to witness it, they were there to see it. For both of us, we had mentors that were extremely monumental in the music, and they were the ones that helped put us on the path to learn about it in a way where it was passed down to them, and now they were passing it down to us. Unfortunately, today it's a different scenario, and even for I know for myself coming into this music, it wasn't like, hey, the so and so band is playing down the block, and this is a completely different era. So seeking and finding those people for me in my journey, it took some time because I had to literally go seek them out. And also, it was the generous help of family and friends who kind of, oh, I have a friend that got some records. Check these records out. Or, hey, I know so and so. She's a wonderful musician. You need to talk to her. Just being able to have the community help guide me along the process and finding out who to talk to, because they knew I had questions and then I was curious at a young age. Of course, again, this music came out of apprenticeship. So for you to learn about it was to literally be on the bandstand and experience those things of knowing what it feels like to not know and want to go back and, okay, I gotta go figure that out as soon as I get home so I can come back and know it the next day. Today it's a different day, so we kind of have to create spaces where children have opportunities to connect with artists, and yeah, to also have opportunities to ask those questions, and to even have the experience of getting on stage and feeling what it's like to figure it out and roll up your sleeves and sink or swim and learn about this music.
Right, right. Well, at the moment, what we're going to transition into is a series of questions by students from the Love Supreme School of Music and from a charter school, from a local charter school in Buffalo. So we're going to start with a few of them, and we're going to stop. They're short questions to which you may have or may not have short answers. And then we'll allow some of the people attending the Zoom session to ask some questions as well.
Hi, I'm Amari Ava, and I'm 11 years old. I play piano and viola, and my question is, what age did she start playing the saxophone?
I started playing the saxophone at, I want to say, 14 years old.
14 years old. All right, here's another question from Darius from the Global Concept Charter School.
My name is Darius. I play percussion at Global Concept, and my question is for Mr. Green. I was wondering, how long did it take you to learn how to do the stick switch when you went from the regular sticks to the mallets?
Oh, to master it, I don't know. For me, I think that the biggest learning experience I had for that was watching drummers do it. Everybody had their way of doing it, and I always watched how they did it, and it always looked so flawless. And so I learned a lot from watching how they would do that. And then I will practice going from mallets to brushes to sticks, things like that. And as you get an understanding of what you can do with your instrument, it becomes a little easier to make a smoother transition as well.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So we're going to move on to our next student.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Evan Dimitrievsky, and I'm a junior at Global Concept Charter High School. I play the piano and the flute. I was just wondering, a question for you guys. Do you play any other instruments than the one shown in the video? And if so, what instruments do you play?
Well, I grew up in St. Albans, Queens, and New York, which actually happened to be a historic area where a lot of jazz greats lived at one point during the 50s. Milt Hinton, Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald. So that's my hometown.
And Mr. Green.
I grew up in Oakland, California.
Right.
And musical legacy there too.
Yeah, it's a lot of music there, and a whole thing. But I moved to New York some years ago because of the music. And a lot of people don't know, but right before Betty transitioned, I was actually planning on coming here to try to connect with her and work in her band, because I was a big fan, and I was actually fortunate enough to help her out a lot when she would come to the West Coast.
Right. Now we're gonna have one more question. This is from Gabrielle Workman, who is one of my students. And this is kind of a question that I'm sure you get a lot, but I'd like to see what you think of it and how you proceed to answer it.
My name is Gabrielle Workman and I'm 11 years old. I play the piano and I have a question for you. How long did it take to master the instruments?
I know for me, I'm still figuring it out.
Yes, the quest never ends, to but you get to a certain extent, a certain point in your journey with the instrument, with the music, that you feel that you have a better understanding than you did when you began. But it never ends. You know?
I have to say though, and this is not just to I don't know, to sing your praises in a vain way, but having had the chance to mix the project, I can say that both of your playings were masterful. I mean, Miss Thurman's improvisation sounds like written music to me. And your dynamics just sound like they came straight out of a recording. I mean, it's almost, I mean, it pays tribute and it is a testament to your long years of hard work and all the things that you've done to achieve what you've achieved both in the music and personally. But really, it was definitely something to see. Let's move on. This is Jackson. He is 5, and he's got a drum question for Mr. Green.
Hi, Mr. Green. My name is Jackson. My instrument is drums. Why does the drums have 4 main drums?
Well, I know originally the drum set consisted of, a bass drum, snare drum, and some auxiliary percussion. Um, the toms kind of came in around that point a little later, not too much later, but you had different kind of toms. But I think the main reason and what he's saying about the 4 drums, you have the bass drum, snare drum, and usually there's a rack tom, or they'll say a top tom and a floor tom. And I think the main reason why you have the 2 toms and one higher and one lower is for that variety of one being higher, one being lower, and that makes up the 4-piece drum kit, which is kind of like standard. And then by today's standards, you'll see a lot more of a 5-piece kit, which has a extra top tom. So it's just a color, a different sound. But usually they want the lower and the higher tom sound to have some variety.
Variety is the answer. We have another one. This is from a trombonist, Kelly, Global Concept Charter High School.
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I play the trombone at Global Concept Charter High School. And my question for you is, in your music careers, how long have you been playing, and what is the reason that you chose music?
Well, not to sound cliche, but it's the older I get, the more I realize that music chose me. I didn't choose music. Uh, from the time my earliest memories, it's all been about music. Literally, I always knew what I wanted to do from the time I entered this world. I knew I wanted to play drums. Period.
Ms. Thurman, was your epiphany as clear as Mr. Green's? Did you just feel like you were born to play and sing?
I think it was. It took me a second to kind of really figure it out, because my earliest memories as a child was singing around the house and jumping up and down and trying to just, sing along to all the recordings I'd hear in the house. But then also too, my mom, she was an educator. Both of my parents are educators, and she would always make an effort to make me go and see music, see
Right.
live performances. So it was almost kind of like it was in my world, even though I wasn't consciously aware. Yeah, this is what I want to do. I loved it. And then it wasn't until I got older that I actually started to pick up the instrument that I started to realize, whoa, there's something special that I really love about doing this, that makes me feel I could be bigger than myself. The first time I heard Dexter, I wanted to be 10 feet tall as him just because of his sound. And I just remember feeling like I want to chase after whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I can't figure out exactly how he's doing it, but it just gave me the bug of wanting to chase after it. And for me, that was just the chase ever since I was a kid, figuring it out.
I, I think that's what it is. A lot of times it's something there. Everybody has a different thing, but it's something that makes them want to go after it. Like for me, I always remember the feeling.
Hmm.
Like I never forgot the feeling of what it sound like, what it felt like. Growing up in church, and this is before drums, really. But just the way it felt, and that to me, that kind of kicked everything off. And then once, you know, I always, like I said, I always liked the drums, but once I actually saw a drummer in person, being a toddler or whatnot, that just blew my mind. I was hypnotized, like literally.
All right, here's the next one, and this is from Madeline Berry Vance.
Hello, my name is Madeline Berry Vance. I am 14 years old, and my question for you is, who introduced you to Betty Carter's music?
I would say the first time I ever even learned about Betty Carter was when I was a kid. My grandmother would watch The Cosby Show, and he would bring on jazz musicians. And I remember one time there was this performance of Betty, and that was the first time I ever heard of her. And then after that, once I started studying and playing the music as a student, I think it was college that I started to really dig into Betty and see, whoa, this woman is scatting on giant steps. I've never seen anything like that before. And just seeing how free she was, listening to her concerts and just seeing, man, I think I want to do that because I want to be in that space. There's something magical about living in that creative space and being able to just have the freedom to tap into just expressing yourself so freely.
Right.
Yeah, so Betty Carter, I think the first time I saw Betty Carter was on television. And there was a jazz concert series that used to come on, I think like PBS or something like that. And I used to watch it all the time. And I remember when I saw Betty Carter, that was my first time. And then a friend of mine had a job of being a driver for one of the big clubs in the Bay Area. And he always asked me to come help him deal with the artists, help get things together. And that's how I met Betty Carter. And I was able to, just see her firsthand, like just the whole thing, just her on stage, off stage. And literally that's what kind of really, really got me hooked. And I was like, I would love to work with her, to be a part of her band and just be in that moment with her, you know. So that was my aspirations, but
Okay, now we have another question from Mariah Fresnel.
Hello, Miss Camille. My name is Mariah Fresnel. My instrument is piano, and I'm in the Love Supreme School of Music. And my question to you was that how do you sing and play saxophone so well, and that I love your singing and your saxophone playing.
Oh, how do I both sing and play the saxophone? It took some time. The singing came first, but I kept it a secret for a long time. And then when I started playing the saxophone, I really, really kept it a secret because I was really shy as a kid. And um, once I started really digging into Dexter Gordon, I would teach myself the solos by scatting them. And I didn't realize that I was scatting, but for me, it was trying to get the syllables as close as possible to what I was hearing and match the pitches and the phrasing and the how he was. It was almost like he was speaking, and I was trying to mimic exactly what he was doing. And through that, I think I figured out, oh wow, I could sing it, I could play the saxophone, because then I realized, well, if I could hear it, if I could sing it, then I could play it. And it started feeling like one thing. And the more I started practicing hearing and singing and playing it, it became like one instrument. So
I like that you said that it started to feel like one thing. I mean, for most of us, those are two very different things. But the fact that you think of all of it as one thing is very interesting to bear witness to.
I think that's
Um,
a very important thing for musicians, young musicians, to realize that no matter what instrument that is to try singing what you're
everything.
going to play. You know, that's very important. I mean, I've always done that as far as like singing drum things. Um, all my life, I always sung drum parts before I could play them. So it's a very internal thing. So then when you play it, it becomes a part of you. It becomes more natural.
and that's probably the testimony of most of us who've been to music school, right? You have this one jazz teacher who was like, "Oh, son, can you play? Can you sing what you just played? Can you sing it back to me?" And that's when you're looking like, "Oh, I was just letting my fingers go. I don't know." But it's very important because I think it focalizes your improvisation, right? It centers it. It makes sure that you're precise. You're not just letting your fingers fly, because you practice a lot of technical things and they just go everywhere. But it's important to sing it and know mentally first before you play it on your instrument what it is that you want to play.
Because there's intention behind it when you
Right.
sing it.
It's not random. This is Maya from Global Concept Charter High School.
Hi, my name is Maya. I'm a senior at Global Concept Charter High School. I play the tenor sax and the clarinet. And my question for you is, how did you all meet? Thank you.
Well, to answer the question in a broad sense, we all met in New York. You know, we all met on the jazz scene in New York. Really, the whole band.
The whole band, right? And you also met Miss Thurman there.
Yes.
Well, we love New York. This is Maya Montgomery.
My name is Maya Montgomery. I play the piano. I'm part of Love Supreme School of Music, and I was wondering, how long did it take you to learn all the instruments?
It took a long time. I think the biggest part is developing the confidence, because once you're able to find it and access it, whether it's playing the instrument or singing, then it's and doing it, you're developing the confidence to be able to have control of it. And it's a lifetime.
Right.
Of course, in the beginning, you're trying to just get things to work and your coordination stuff to happen and your muscle memory. But the more you do it, the more you kind of develop this 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 confidence of understanding and feeling and knowing, this intuition of I can feel my instrument and be able to access it and make it speak just like talking and walking.
Mr. Green.
That's actually a hard question, because the learning never stops. But I think the important thing is to really take the time to get your fundamentals, and don't try to rush through it. You know, make sure you understand and know the fundamentals of what you're doing. You know, the movements to get the sound right. Sound is important. You know, don't just think like, oh, I'm going to do this and this is going to happen. Think about the sound. Like, how do you want it to sound? And just that relation of being able to control your body and the instrument. And it takes time, but it takes as much time as you put into it, really. You know, if you put in 1 minute a day compared to somebody that's putting in 30 minutes a day or 4 hours a day, you're going to get different results. So it really depends on how much you put into it.
Makes sense. All right. And this one is from Noah Nelson.
My name is Noah Nelson. I'm 12 years old and I play the piano. How long did it take you to play the saxophone?
It's the question you just answered, how long it took you to play the saxophone. So later we'll take those two videos and kind of collage them together so you guys, so it can be more cohesive. Okay, this is my student. This is Victoria Bivens. asking, why do you love Betty Carter so much?
Hi, my name is Victoria. I'm 9 years old. I play the flute and piano. And why do you love Betty Carter so much?
Oh, we love Betty Carter. Wow, I love her because she was just so powerful as an artist, but as a person, she was full of life. She had no problem taking everything of who she was inside and putting it all out there in the music and for people to hear unapologetically. And I love her example of that because sometimes as artists, you face different things, especially when you go out there and try to be your own person that might tempt you to, or you might hear things, okay, well, you need to be this, or you need to do that, or you need to shape that. But when you see Betty's example and her story and you learn it, you realize she didn't really compromise for anybody. She just was unapologetically herself. And that's what made her successful, being unique, having the sound that she had, approaching improvisation the way she did, approaching her music, challenging all the norms that people probably thought of vocalists to be, and just saying later for that, I'm going to do this the way I envision it. So she's my hero.
Yeah, and all of that comes from an understanding of what is, what it is. You can't just go out there and jump, jump into the water and say I'm going to swim. You first have to know how to swim to say, oh, I'm going to swim this way, or I'm going to go this way. And Betty, for me, my first thing that really got me into her was the fact that most of the time when you would see jazz singers, um, they would just stand out front and sing.
Mhm.
And she was like a part of the band, like she was an instrument. And that was the first time for me witnessing somebody, a singer, being using their voice and being a part of the band as an instrumentalist, and not as just like, oh, I'm the singer out front, I'm going to sing and the band accompanies. So that was my first take that kind of drew me into her.
And a powerful band leader. I mean, a lot of times we don't talk about, there were matriarchs of this music that really helped shape it to be what it was, and she was one of those matriarchs that trained the musicians and was a powerful band leader at a time where you didn't really see a lot of women taking on that role.
Well, those were wonderful answers to wonderful questions. And it was great to learn more about you yourselves as musicians and of Betty Carter and Art Blakey as well. I will now open the floor for the next 5 minutes for everybody who is here with us attending the Zoom at the moment. And if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and turn on your camera and ask it. Any questions for our guests?
Yes, I do. I don't know if you guys can see me because
we can see and hear you.
Like the shadow knows, I noticed that you guys said that you're here in New York City. I live here in New York City too. Where are you guys? Where can I come hear you?
We just played last night.
We literally did.
Thanks.
But we're performing
Jazzmobile and all the other.
But sooner than that, I know this December 11th, 4 to 6 p.m. in Brooklyn. And I can look it up. We're playing a Jazz Vespers.
Oh, I know exactly what that is.
I can tell you the name of the church we're going to be at, and then Jazzmobile.
Yeah, we're also playing Jazzmobile. Let me pull up the calendar. We're playing in Jazzmobile December 15th in Harlem. So, but the easiest way, honestly, is if you go to our websites. Mine is www.camillethurmanmusic.com.
Mine's just not working right now, so
it's in the process of getting renovated.
But mine's is darrellgreen.net. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so the church on December 11th, we're playing 4 to 6. It's called the First Baptist Church of Crown Heights.
Okay, and that's in Brooklyn.
That's in Brooklyn, 450 Eastern Parkway.
And then for Jazzmobile, just gonna pull up real quick for you. It's the Interchurch Center, 61 Claremont Avenue in Harlem, 7 p.m. December 15th.
All right, that's it's a lot of info for you guys. So do we have any other questions from our attendees for
I have a question.
today? Yes.
And I have a comment also. I first want to thank Mr. Green and Ms. Thurman for the presentations today and also the YouTube videos. And I really appreciate Mr. Green for introducing some of the music. I don't know a lot about the drums, but when you suggested a way of listening to it, it really helped me understand more comprehensively the drums. But Ms. Thurman, to me, you seem so young to have mastered your scat so eloquently. How did you go about learning how to scat so beautifully?
Wow, thank you. It goes back to just trying to get as close to what I could hear. For me, when I started playing the saxophone, I didn't understand at 13, 14 years old what technically they were doing, but I could hear that there was intention, that there was a story, there was meaning, there was wit, there was humor, and that improvising was a way of expressing yourself and telling your story. So all those little nuances, like I just as a kid remember trying to find a way to get my voice to kind of mimic it and then finding a way to translate it on the horn. But I think that's always been my life journey of just improvising and trying to find a way to tell the story, but also really, yeah, tell a story. Yeah.
We'll take one more question and we'll have to adjourn after that. Is there one more question? All right.
Well, I did have a part B, but I didn't want to hog up all the time. Okay?
Right, that makes sense. Well, if nobody else has a question.
Who is this guy we can't see asking all the questions?
But if there's nobody else, we'll take you. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just have one, and I suppose this is it's a deeply personal question because I know what the Webster's definition of what jazz is, but what is jazz to a jazz musician? What is jazz? Like, tell me from what your hearts are telling me what jazz is.
Man, that's the deep question.
That's why I stayed in the shadows. See, that's why
Okay. I mean, it's everything. As a Black person, it's everything that I need to know and understand about my culture, my history, loving and embracing who I am, and the uniqueness of our people. When I hear how Dexter's lines, it's like poetry. When I hear Betty and how she's able to, yeah, sing the stories of and experiences of what so many of us have lived, but then also be able to use her voice and an instrument that goes beyond just herself. That's the thing I think that makes us want to wake up every day and try to chase after it, because all of our heroes, they were like superhuman and were a testament to what it means to live and to thrive and to go beyond the situation that we experience as a people here. Like they just had a power of just being able to transport you into a place where it's beyond what you could even comprehend, but it's beautiful because it's like that's who we are and that's what we can be and you could be too.
That's heavy.
Jazz for me is the expression of Black people, and that's what it really is to me, because they were able to take these things and put it into a way of playing, and it's really the highest form of playing any instrument. When you get to that point of mastering it, and when I say the expression, it's that in between thing. It's the thing, like when I see you walk down the street, you can say that's definitely a Black person. When you hear somebody talk, that's a Black person. The way they move, the way they gesture, that's jazz. Those little in between things that differentiate, you know, who we are as a people from everything else. There's a certain little thing, if we really, check it out. And I think that little thing is what a lot of the masters were able to capture and put it into music, into a way we conform, we in that not only we as Black people could relate to, but the whole world could relate to. It was a human experience, and so to start off, just like any cultural music, you're playing the expression of a people, whether we're doing Chinese traditional music or classical music or whatever, you're playing their expressions first before you can even take it on to say, okay, well, now this is my interpretation of that, or this is my interpretation of how I live in that way. But dealing with jazz, it's an expression of Black people. That's what we do.
This was just such an apropos question to close this interaction. I think it's very important for us to acknowledge the culture behind certain things before we adopt them for ourselves, right? And that goes for everybody, because again, I'm a Black person, but I understand jazz as an African American tradition. I'm Haitian American. I grew up in a different country. I have to pay my respects to the long tradition of African Americans who paved the way for jazz to become what it is, for it to even have been what it was then, and that is just something that is, it's not palpable, it's not tangible, but it needs to be understood, right? I mean, and I'll close with this. Denzel Washington was on an interview, and they were asking him, well, why did it have to be a Black director for this movie? And it was really an African American story. He said, it's not color, it's culture. He said, you, me, and everybody here, we know what the smell of burnt hair is on Sunday morning in the kitchen. It's not a matter of what color you are. As if you're Black, you know what it's like for people to get their hair ironed before they go to church on Sunday morning. So it's a matter of culture. And when you talked about the expression of a people, that's what that means, right? And this is not a divisive issue. On the contrary, I think it's more an understanding, a deeper understanding of the other and where they came from and what their narrative is and what their story is. That said, it was such a pleasure to have you both with us. It was such a pleasure to have this wonderful audience here on Zoom. It's been an amazing journey with you guys, from recording this digital residency, you and all the other players, and I'm going to say their names just for the record: Tom DeCarlo on bass, Wallace Roney Jr. on trumpet, and we had Camille Thurman obviously on saxophone, Mrs. Del Green on drums, and Keith Brown on piano. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much for your work on this project, and most importantly, thank you so very much to Chamber Music America for their support in this project, allowing us to have it come to fruition. We'd like to thank Dawn Barry Walker, our CEO, for having done everything in her power to make sure that this was done properly and in a timely fashion. And I'm looking at you, Dawn, because she does not do anything late. Thank you so much, everybody. And until the next time, we'll have to do something like this. But for now, we will adjourn and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thank you both. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks for having us.